Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder, ADHD. Imagine you're at a circus where something new and exciting is happening everywhere you look. Clowns are juggling colorful balls and lions are jumping through flaming hoops. Your eyes are darting from one thing to the next, trying to take it all in, but focusing on just one thing feels almost impossible. That's kind of what it's like to have ADHD, a circus happening in your brain 24/7. Your brain is like a hyperactive ringmaster, constantly whipping you from one whirlwind thought to the next without giving you a chance to catch your breath. If you have ADHD, you often struggle with things like paying attention, staying organized, and controlling your impulses. It's like your mental switch is always on, and no matter how hard you try, switching it off feels impossible. Your brain is constantly bombarded with exciting possibilities, and you want to explore them all at once. It's like a kid in a candy store with an unlimited allowance. This disorder affects 366 million children, teenagers, and adults globally, and there are different types of ADHD. If you have inattentive ADHD, you struggle to focus and complete tasks even when you want to. You lose concentration easily and have a very short attention span. Then there's hyperactive impulsive ADHD, which makes it difficult to stay still or control your urges. You can't sit still or stay quiet, and you talk too fast and loud. And then there's combined ADHD, which is what you get if you have both inattentive ADHD and hyperactive impulsive ADHD simultaneously. It's like a very energetic child who is easily distracted and has no control over their volume. Obsessive-Compulsive Disorder, OCD. Obsessive-Compulsive Disorder, OCD, is like having a strict, overbearing mother living in your head, constantly nagging you to clean, check, and organize everything. But instead of just rolling your eyes and ignoring her, you feel compelled to obey. Living with OCD often makes you experience unwanted thoughts or fears that won't go away. It's like having a mental itch you just can't scratch, no matter how hard you try. Over time, this develops into compulsions, repetitive behaviors or mental acts that make you feel the need to fix things, either to reduce your anxiety or to prevent something terrible from happening. For example, you may worry about germs and getting sick. To ease these fears, you wash your hands over and over again, clean your house at least 12 times a day, and spray so much disinfectant on everything you touch. This condition is quite common, affecting about 79 million people worldwide. People diagnosed with OCD are often treated with cognitive behavioral therapy. Schizophrenia. As a child, you probably had that imaginary friend who always seemed to be there and nobody else could hear, see, or even talk to them except you. However, as you got older, you realized that the imaginary friend was just a trick in your mind, and they were never actually real. Now, for someone with schizophrenia, that imaginary friend is as accurate as a living, breathing person. This means they can see, hear, or talk to that person, even when nobody else can. A person with this disorder also has very vivid delusions and would sometimes make up another reality. For example, they would believe that they are a secret agent on a mission to save the world. It's like their mind is a radio that's constantly changing stations. One minute you're tuned into reality, the next you pick up signals from a completely different universe. Unfortunately, this mental disorder is the fate of about 1 in every 300 people, and there is no cure for it. Still, early diagnosis, therapy, antipsychotic medications, and self-management techniques can help manage symptoms and improve quality of life. Post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. It's been 6 months since you came out of a coma after surviving the car accident that took the life of your wife and 2 kids. After what feels like an eternity of hospital beds and rehab workouts that would make even the Hulk break a sweat, you're finally free to go home. But the mere thought of hopping into a car sends shivers down your spine. It's like your brain is staging a horror movie marathon complete with screeching tires and broken glass. Forget entering the car. Even hearing the sounds of cars driving along the road feels like someone is holding a grenade over your head. That is what we call PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. It's like your brain's way of saying, hey, remember that thing that happened? Let's relive it over and over again just for kicks. PTSD doesn't just happen out of the blue. The disorder only starts after you have experienced a major traumatic event and starts anytime you see, hear, or even smell anything related to that event. You would immediately break into a sweat, feel fear, rapid breathing, and sometimes even faint. One minute you're minding your own business, and the next you're having flashbacks and nightmares that make you feel like you're starring in your very own horror flick. Bipolar Disorder. If you've ever gone to an amusement park and gotten on a fast roller coaster ride, then you might understand what it feels like to have bipolar disorder. Except this is not the fun kind of ride with happy screams and cotton candy. This type of roller coaster ride would feel like you have two different people living inside your brain. Literally. The first person would be the manic phase, which is the crazy, extremely hyperactive phase. During the manic phase, you would feel like you just won a lottery ticket and drank a double shot of espresso. But then, just when you think you've got it all figured out, the depressive phase hits you like a ton of bricks, like someone just threw ice water on you. Suddenly, you're like Squidward from SpongeBob SquarePants, grumpy, pessimistic, and convinced that everything is pointless. These extreme mood swings can happen quickly and without warning, and for some people, aggression and violence are thrown into the mix. It's like your brain is playing a cruel game of ping pong with your emotions. Scientists and research have shown that bipolar disorder can be linked to genetics, brain chemistry, and life experiences, and it affects around 40 million people worldwide. It's not something you can catch like the flu, and it's definitely not something you can just snap out of. Depressive disorder. If you have depression, it would feel like you're constantly stuck in a world that is entirely black and white, with no single color. Every day seems like a terrible case of bad Mondays. However, depression isn't just about feeling sad for a while or just having a bad day. During a depressive episode, there's a constant emptiness and sadness that you would feel, like someone used a giant vacuum cleaner to suck out all of the joy in your life. You lose interest in everything you used to love, like pizza, ice cream, your dog, and even watching YouTube videos on your favorite channel. Losing interest in everything would also mean that you'll just spend your day sleeping or not sleeping at all, eating everything you can find or not eating at all for days, and your energy level would be the same as a sloth's on a lazy Sunday. This disorder affects roughly 280 million people worldwide, and most people who have depression may not even realize it. But if you're constantly feeling sad and tired, you may want to see a therapist who can help you work through your feelings and learn different coping strategies. Anxiety disorder. Anxiety is the stomach-churning, sweat-inducing cocktail of fear and worry that's as unpredictable as the weather on a spring day. With an anxiety disorder, you would literally feel like you're constantly being chased by a giant grizzly bear. You would feel like your heart is literally trying to jump out of your chest. In addition to this, you'd also experience sweaty palms like you were holding a water sponge, and it would feel like your stomach is doing somersaults like an Olympic gymnast. Now, a little anxiety in small doses is helpful because it's your body's natural response to danger, which helps keep you alert and sometimes motivates you to do your best. But when anxiety starts to interfere with your day-to-day living, it may have just crossed the line into disorder territory. This means that you'll be getting loads of anxiety that makes your brain spin faster like a hamster on a wheel. You might be having a great day, but suddenly a troubling thought enters your mind, and you feel like the walls around you are collapsing. Most people with anxiety disorders don't realize how deeply it can affect their daily life. This disorder often improves over time with early diagnosis and proper treatment. Sleep disorders. According to the World Sleep Society, about 45% of people globally suffer from some type of sleep disorder. One of the most common is insomnia, a condition where no matter how exhausted you are or how hard you try, you just can't drift off to dreamland. It's like your brain is busy with its own work and has forgotten about your body. Aside from insomnia, where you spend more time counting sheep than actually sleeping, some people deal with narcolepsy. With this condition, you can't stop falling asleep even in the middle of the day, regardless of how well you slept the night before. You could doze off anywhere, while driving or even cooking. Then there's also sleepwalking, talking in your sleep, or even sleep eating. It's like having a secret life you don't remember in the morning. Eating disorder. An eating disorder is like a mean bully that convinces you that there is seriously something wrong with your body, but this time the bully is inside your head. It's like your brain just develops an unhealthy relationship with food, similar to what you've had with your ex. For instance, some people with an eating disorder might become convinced that they need to be stick thin no matter how skinny they already are, so their brain tells them to restrict their food intake or go on severely extreme diets, like eating just one egg every day. On the flip side, others might go through cycles of binge eating where they'll inhale massive amounts of food in one sitting and then feel so guilty that they try to get rid of the food by forcing themselves to throw up or abusing laxatives. This toxic relationship with food is often rooted in deep emotional issues like anxiety, trauma, depression, or low self-esteem. Paranoia. It's normal to feel scared or suspicious of people sometimes, especially when there's a valid reason to be. But for someone with paranoia, that fear and suspicion is amplified by 10,000. Let's say you're at work and see two colleagues talking quietly in a corner. Most people would think they have personal matters to discuss, but a person with paranoia might believe they're plotting to get them fired, or even killed. It's like your brain has transformed into a suspicious detective that sees threats everywhere, even when there's no real reason to be scared. You'd suspect that everyone and everything around you is out to harm you. Coupled with irrational fear and mistrust of others, you'd also get easily offended, defensive, and become hostile, argumentative, and aggressive. Paranoia can be caused by genetics, traumatic life events, or extremely stressful situations. Autism Spectrum Disorder, ASD. Imagine you're in a room full of people, and everyone is laughing at a joke, but you can't quite grasp it or even understand what they're talking about. It feels like you're on another planet. This is a typical experience for many people with Autism Spectrum Disorder, ASD. ASD is a neurological condition that affects how people communicate, interact, and perceive the world. It's like having a brain that operates on a slightly different system than most. You might take longer to process certain things or get hung up on details that others wouldn't even notice. If you're on the autism spectrum, you might struggle with social interactions, making eye contact, or even understanding simple jokes. On the flip side, you might have intense interests or hobbies that you pursue with laser-like focus, be highly creative, or have a remarkable memory for details. But autism isn't a one-size-fits-all condition. It's called a spectrum because everyone on it is unique, with their own combination of traits and characteristics. Some people may excel in areas like math or music, while others might face challenges in academic or occupational tasks. ASD affects about 1% of the global population. While there is no medical procedure to reverse the condition, it can be managed through behavioral therapy, educational interventions, and medications to help with anxiety, irritability, and hyperactivity, which often accompany ASD. Dyslexia. Imagine a classroom where kids are learning to read and write. Most children eventually pick up reading and writing skills, but a child with dyslexia might find it much harder to even recognize letters, let alone read words. It's like their brain is on a different learning journey that needs extra time and support to find the right path. Dyslexia affects the part of the brain that processes language, making it more difficult to learn how to read, write, or spell. Words and numbers often appear jumbled, making them hard to understand. For example, if a person with dyslexia were trying to make pancakes using a cookbook, the recipe might say add 2 spoons of sugar, but they could see add 2 slat. However, dyslexia is not related to intelligence. People with dyslexia are just as smart as everyone else. They simply need to be taught differently. Tools like phonetic programs, audiobooks, and text-to-speech software can help people with dyslexia manage their learning process. Thanks so much for watching. If you had fun or learned something new, give this video a like and hit that subscribe button for more awesome content. Don't forget to tap the notification bell to never miss new videos. I'd love to hear from you. Let me know in the comments what you want to see next. Stay curious, keep exploring, and I'll see you in the next video.